Today on InFocus, we've got a second look at a popular musical, an all-nighter with the collegiate staff, psychology and bikes, and the perks of being in choir. All this coming up next. Well, a lot has happened since the last InFocus. Charlie Brown earned rave reviews, and we take you behind the scenes to show you what it took to get there.
There was something unusual on campus last week, something we don't see at BJ very often. A musical in Stratton Hall. Many of you went to the performance. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. But here's a look behind the scenes of how it all came together.
This production actually has been on a very tight time frame. We've only basically had about a month to put it together from start to finish, from when we got back to Christmas break until the performances in mid-February.
Basically, I started kind of playing with my concept for the play. I wanted the characters in a cartoon world, so I wanted everything to look like it came straight out of the comic strip.
For all the productions are built by, there's a class called Intro to Dramatic Productions, and every member of that class has to put in a certain number of lab hours for that semester. I personally helped build the Lucy's psychiatric booth and Snoopy's doghouse, both of which are pretty massive structures. So I spent quite a few hours just back here in Perf Hall in the wood shop using power tools on Saturdays, which was actually pretty fun. I could think of worse ways to spend a Saturday morning. So it was very interesting to see it all come together, you know, because basically everything we built as far as set pieces go, we built from scratch. So we had 2x4s and plywood. We had different people sketch out designs and then just build it from the ground up. It was really neat to see it all come together.
Sometimes I think that they get a little bit too into their characters, which their characters are like 5 and 6. So sometimes I feel like I'm directing a bunch of kindergartners, but they're fun. They have great energy, which is great for this production.
She has been an amazing director through this whole thing. I mean, it's been quite a production. I mean, as far, you know, with the music and the actual acting and everything, different facets. And she's done a really fantastic job of just keeping us all focused, keeping us on task. She has definitely been patient. She has pushed us to our limits, and she has definitely kept us in line whenever we needed it.
That was a look behind the scenes of one of the many performances going on campus this semester. For InFocus, I'm Jenny Miller.
It's no news that college students do not get enough sleep. But what does that mean for the college students who write the news?
It's late, it's dark, and most campus students are busy going to bed and getting ready for the next day. But not for the 27 members of the collegiate staff. Every night of the week, writers and editors get together in the collegiate office located in the Student Center to build and produce the weekly campus publication.
We actually are working on about 3 issues at a time.
Andrew Brandenburg, the editor of the collegiate, is responsible for the overall content and look of the campus newspaper.
I'll start by starting a new layout, which is blank except for the masthead and the banner and everything like that. Stick in all the ads, stick in all the content, things like that.
He does not work alone, though, but rather relies on the other members of the staff to write, take pictures, design, and draw in a timely manner.
From conception to distribution, it's about almost exactly 3 weeks.
The collegiate's goal and purpose is to provide a publication for the students, by the students.
It's a newspaper. It's for the students, and that's where most of our energy honestly goes. I tell my staffers, ask your friends, what do they want to read about? Ask people, what do they want to read about? Because that's the stuff we want to cover.
The collegiate's ultimate purpose is to glorify the Lord.
It's not just, you know, something fun that we do in addition to classes, but all the people who are on the staff really have made a commitment, and they're sold on making this excellent, and I hope and think that it does show through this year.
For InFocus, reporting on the collegiate, I'm Timmy Price.
So for this next segment, you need to ask yourself, what do psychology, prayer, and bikes have in common?
As students, we sit in classes day in and day out. But what do we really know about the people who educate us? Probably not as much as we think we do. Dr. Greg Mazak is the head of the psychology department.
Began teaching here in 1983. Came to school here in 1983. Began teaching in 1986.
But when Dr. Mazak isn't in the classroom, you can find him at home on the weekend doing a variety of things. Mowing his lawn, blowing off his driveway, and more recently, wiring the garage that he's building. But there's one more thing you might not have known about Dr. Mazak.
Well, I have a motorcycle, and probably my 8th or 9th motorcycle, and I enjoy it. Good prayer time in your helmet. I mean, when you're riding and you have your helmet on, you spend good prayer time. You can see the outdoors in a way you can't in a car, seriously. I think it's just probably something old godly men gravitate towards. So I took my wife on our honeymoon on a motorcycle and rode from Cleveland, Ohio up to Cape Cod on the tip of, what is it, outside of Boston, tip of Massachusetts. Martha's Vineyards out there. Had a wonderful time just with my new wife on a motorcycle. And I mean, it's just wonderful. It really is. I don't like to drive in traffic a lot. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. But when I drive from my house, I head north and I go up to Highway 11 on the North Carolina border, and I like to ride some of those roads. And this is a real beautiful place to ride.
But as much as Dr. Mazak enjoys riding his bike, there's something else he's definitely more passionate about.
I like being with young people. It's just an exciting time of life, and God changed my life when I was in college, and I realized what an open and maybe potentially volatile time it is, because people are making decisions that will impact them actually into eternity.
We've heard it 1,000 times. We are receiving a liberal arts education, and part of that includes the opportunity to be in a choir. There are actually 7 to choose from. Well, audition into.
My name is Kara Halleck, and I'm a junior voice major.
My name is Nathaniel Gentium.
I'm Chris Taylor. I'm a junior graphic design major.
I'm a third-year seminary student working on a Master of Divinity.
I love singing. I've always loved being in choir.
I love to sing.
My major kind of decided that I would be in choir, but I love choir.
It was a little bit nerve-wracking because I'd never auditioned for a choir before.
Oh, they make you do all kinds of fun things.
They give you something to sight read, just a random melody.
And you just sing a hymn.
They do a range check.
And they'll play some really weird melodies.
What's called pitch retention.
And then say, okay, sing that back to us.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
Once you get through the audition process and are placed in a choir, you just never know what might happen.
Nicole Monroe, me and her, we're probably the first major choir relationship, and probably still the most famous, and probably will be for quite a long time.
Recently, Concert Choir traveled to Florida on tour under the direction of Mr. Eric Ray.
Show me some posture there, like you want to sing.
Mr. Ray.
Oh, Mr. Ray.
I could say a lot about Mr. Ray.
He is probably one of my favorite musicians in this world.
I appreciated his joy, his flexibility, his ability to keep us focused but have a good time.
There were so many times when we'd be in the midst of a performance, in a service, and there's just a special connection and bond between the director and the choir, and it was very special to see how they were each in that moment worshiping their God and praising Christ. And it wasn't just a performance, it was a sacrifice of praise from them.
What is choir without an accompanist?
Mr. Ream.
Mr. Ream.
Upon first meeting Mr. Ream, you will think him an austere person.
Mr. Ream's role on the surface is as the accompanist.
Mr. Ream is like my second dad.
He's actually quite colorful and quite personable. I was very pleasantly surprised.
But in reality, because of his years of experience with these tours, his role was to keep us together.
I enjoy so much getting to know the young people in choir. As a pianist, you're serving them, you're serving the director.
What would motivate a choir director and accompanist to travel to Florida with about 30 college students for a week?
Tremendous opportunity for ministry.
Getting out there, meeting people.
The choir to develop as a group, both musically and personally.
Concert choir also spent a lot of time in the bus.
There's so many funny things.
We were playing apples to apples.
But we played Dutch Blitz.
One of the most famous quotes from Off the Bus. This bus is like a mullet.
The party in the back, but it's business up front.
So all kinds of good things happen to you when you're in a choir.
As we've seen, there are a lot of perks to being in choir. Well, that's it for this edition of InFocus. I'm your host, Ashley Johnson. We'll see you next time.
Ashley Johnson, actually, usually quiet, a great TV personality on campus. She would scream and give this great grunt, and I'm not even going to try to imitate it.
Take 10.